Okay, so the last video we're going to give you Year 11 before your paper 2 is one looking at the final question, the 8-mark question for the unseen comparison. If any of you sat there thinking, what about calc paragraphs for Animal Farm or poetry? They're exactly the same. You know how to calc. The way you calc on Animal Farm and poetry is exactly the way that you calc on Romeo and Juliet and Jekyll and Hyde. So just go back, watch the Romeo and Juliet, Jekyll and Hyde videos, because remember, it's the same skill. It's the text that change, but the skill is the same. So your sentence starters, thinking about why a writer chooses and selects a verb, what influences them, things like that, but everything is the same. Okay, so remember, you're not doing a new skill, you're just looking at a new text. So let's return to this. So remember, at this point, if you've got your timings right, you are now 2 hours and 5 minutes. You're probably exhausted at this point, a little bit fed up. And at this very moment, you are then faced with a totally fresh poem that you've never seen before. But again, as Mr. Barber said on the previous video, what we must remember is this is only 8 marks. Remember, the entire paper is out of 96. So this is only 8 marks. But at the same time, before anyone thinks, well, we don't need to try very hard on it, I would hate there to be 1 or 2 of you out there who miss out on a grade 5 or 6 or 4, whatever, by 1 mark and look back and think, if I could have just got that extra mark here. So every mark counts, but at the same time, 10 minutes is plenty to be answering this 8-mark question. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So now the first thing is, don't be scared, because if you're suddenly thinking 10 minutes, 2 poems, that's a lot of things to be thinking about there. Really, they're asking you to play a very, very simple game, and it is a game. If we look at the question, in both Today and Autumn, the speakers describe the attitudes towards the season. They're just telling you. They're saying both these poems are about seasons. This is about spring, this is about autumn, okay? What are the similarities or differences between the ways? And that is the thing that you need to really make sure that you understand. They are not asking you to talk about the things that are talked about. They know the content's the same. They've told you they're both about seasons. You're not going to get any marks for saying, oh, both writers talk about the seasons. That's just stating the obvious. But what they want you to do is to find methods that are the same in the both. So really, the way I would look at it is this, and the way I talk to when I explain it to my pupils is, you're going to play a game of language feature snap. You're going to try and find a language feature in this poem and a language feature, the same language feature in this poem, and then we're going to write a fairly short paragraph analysing those two, and then we've kind of fulfilled our responsibilities for an 8-mark question. So let's have a read through, and we've had a read through, and I've identified something. I was having a read through and I thought to myself, right, what have we got in here? We've got this lovely, the theft chills the world. So that's not really happening, so I'm thinking that is a metaphor. Okay, so there's this metaphorical theft, the idea that autumn's removing, stealing the leaves and the life from the world. So now what I've got to do, I don't have to understand all this poem, I don't have to worry about all the poem, I'm looking for one metaphor. And I saw, as I was reading, there's this lovely little moment, it says, unlatch the door to the canary's cage. And there isn't really a canary, there isn't really a cage, it's actually talking about what springtime does in terms of it freezes, it brings life back, it allows us to leave the house, all those kind of things. So now I've got what I need. That's it for this question. I've found a metaphor and I found a metaphor. So let's just have a look how we're going to show that to the examiner. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight, I'm going to start with both writers, and it's a really important word. I want you to really make sure I'm going to underline it, you don't have to, but both writers use. That is your key word, because that shows that you're dealing with ways. So both writers use interest. I'm going to always drop in the adjective interesting. Metaphors, you could put powerful or emotive, just to really show you getting into it. Okay? Interesting metaphors and I'm going to, what's the question? To describe attitudes towards the seasons. To describe attitudes towards the seasons. So I've identified one thing they both do. I've said snap. But now, there's a couple more things. Now I have to actually analyse those 2 quotes. So now I have to return to this one. I have to think, right, let's get this one down. So we're going to put in autumn, okay? In autumn, I'll use bold, employs, because let's keep reminding them all the time, we're clever, we've got a vocabulary, okay? Employs the metaphor. Let's just remind them again, and I've spotted a metaphor, I'm going to call it metaphor again. Theft chills the world. All right, and I'm going to explain why, to show that as life disappears in autumn and leaves begin to fall, I'm going to talk about the fact it is almost like the season is taking away joy. It's almost like the season is removing our joy. and what we value. All right, because we think, I might do the idea, right, theft is associated with losing something valuable.
Could even be the noun theft.
Indeed.
So then you zoomed in on a key word in the quotation.
And again, if you ever want to add anything, like Mr. Barber just said, I'm going to put a little star there, and I'll find somewhere down here, I'm just going to put the noun. All right, so to make sure, so noun theft is associated with losing something valuable, showing how what's the word, how nefarious autumn can be. Right, now I've done one. Now I need to flip it now. So I've said they both use metaphors. Here's the metaphor from poem A. I need to now flip it. Now it's a conversely. I'm going to go similarly conversely. If this was a negative metaphor, I would go similarly. But actually, this is a very positive metaphor. So I'm going to go conversely to show that actually there is a metaphor being used, but it's slightly different. So conversely, in today, so let's get the poem name in there. In today, Collins chooses, and again it's a choice, chooses the metaphor unlatch the door to the canary's cage. And I'm just put showing that the return of life in spring it is almost like it's a moment of freedom.
Liberation for the canary.
Liberation, even better. Is a moment of liberation for the canary. And let's be really clever at the end. And what about and almost rights the wrongs which autumn did.
Just zoom in again. Zoom in on the word.
Okay, and if we were having a look in there, we might have a look in the term unlatched. Okay, so we might put the verb unlatched. Don't forget, when you pick out a keyword, make sure it's got the quotation marks. The verb unlatched shows that it's kind of the key. I'm just going to put shows that spring is the key and gives us absolute freedom.
So one quote, labeling a language technique, and then zoom in on a keyword, and then flip it conversely or similarly. The same language technique or a similar one in the other poem could be positive, could be negative, could be different, could be similar. But then zoom in on the keyword if you get time in those 10 minutes.
And notice it wasn't both talk about seasons, both talk about this. It's this writer, they both use this. Here's this writer using it, let me explain. Conversely or similarly, here's this writer using it, let me explain. That is what you're looking to do, a game of snap and then explain it.